My wife thought she had struck gold. The very week my mother passed away and I inherited her fortune, she filed for divorce, smiling, certain she was walking away with half of everything. But what she didn't know was that my mother, even from the grave, had already seen through her. She left behind a plan so airtight, so brilliant, that it turned my wife's greed into her biggest downfall. This is a story of how I lost my mother, lost my marriage, but gained the truth that saved my life. 10-inch my wife thought she had struck gold. The very week my mother passed away and I inherited her fortune, she filed for divorce, smiling, certain she was walking away with half of everything. But what she didn't know was that my mother, even from the grave, had already seen through her. She left behind a plan so airtight, so brilliant, that it turned my wife's greed into her biggest downfall. This is a story of how I lost my mother, lost my marriage, but gained the truth that saved my life. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. Now let's dive in. Daniel never imagined that love could come so easily. It was a Saturday evening in Lagos, the kind of evening where the streets buzz with life, laughter spilled from roadside bars, and music danced in the air. He was at a friend's birthday party, leaning against a balcony rail when he first saw Clara. She stood out immediately, not because she was the loudest in the room. No, Clara had a quiet elegance about her. She wore a simple dress, soft peach in color, that clung to her slender frame. Her laughter, light and unforced, floated across the room, catching Daniel's attention like a flame in the dark. His friend nudged him. "Guy, you've been staring at that girl for 5 minutes. At least go and talk to her before someone else does." Daniel chuckled nervously, adjusting his shirt. He wasn't the type to chase after women with bold moves, but something about Clara pulled at him. He crossed the room, heart pounding, and introduced himself. "Hi, I'm Daniel." She toned, her smile bright but measured. "Clara, nice to meet you." They shook hands. Her grip was firm, not limp or hesitant. Daniel liked that. At first, the conversation was small talk, where they worked, mutual friends, the party. But soon, the word began to flow naturally, as if they had known each other for years. Clara worked as a fashion buyer, traveling often to source fabrics and designs. Daniel was still at his bank job then, steady and secure, though his eyes were already fixed on bigger dreams. "You sound like someone who wants more than the safe path," Clara said, tilting her head. Daniel grinned. "And you sound like someone who isn't afraid of adventure." She laughed, her eyes shining. That night, they talked until the party thinned out and only the sound of crickets remained. From that evening on, they became inseparable. Dates at small restaurants, late-night walks on quiet streets, weekends spent talking about the future. Clara's laughter became a kind of music Daniel carried everywhere. He thought, "This is it. This is the woman I want to build my life with." Months passed, and Daniel introduced Clara to his closest friends. They teased him endlessly, saying he looked like a man bewitched. He didn't care. He was proud to be in love. The true test, though, came when it was time to introduce Clara to his mother, Evelyn. Evelyn was a strong woman, widowed early but never broken. She carried herself with quiet dignity, the kind of woman who commanded respect without raising her voice. She lived in Ibadan, in a modest but well-kept home surrounded by flowers she had planted herself. The day Daniel drove Clara there, his palms were sweating on the steering wheel. "Don't worry," Clara teased, squeezing his hand. "Mothers always love me." But Daniel wasn't so sure. Evelyn wasn't an easy woman to impress. When they arrived, Evelyn welcomed them warmly. She hugged her son tightly, looked Clara up and down, then offered a polite smile. "Welcome, my dear. Please, come in." Inside, they sat in the living room, sipping juice while Evelyn asked Clara questions. Where did she grow up? What did she do? What were her plans for the future? Clara answered smoothly, her voice confident, her smile steady. Yet, beneath the politeness, there was no spark between the two women. Evelyn's smile never reached her eyes, and Clara, though polite, didn't seem eager to bond either. After Clara excused herself to take a phone call outside, Evelyn turned to Daniel. "She's beautiful," Evelyn said softly. Daniel smiled. "I told you, Mama." Evelyn nodded slowly, her eyes thoughtful. Then she leaned closer. Daniel, you know I won't stand in your way. You're a man now, free to make your choices. But let me say this, time reveals people better than words ever will. Watch carefully. Don't rush. Daniel frowned. Mama, what are you trying to say? You don't like her? I didn't say that. I only said, be patient. The heart can be sweet, but life is a way of testing sweetness. Daniel chuckled nervously. You're just being protective, Mama. I love her. You'll see. Clara will be good for me. Evelyn gave him a long look, the kind that seemed to carry unspoken wisdom. I pray so, my son. I truly pray so. In the months that followed, Clara and Evelyn's relationship remained polite. That was the best word for it. Polite, but cold. Whenever Clara visited, she greeted Evelyn warmly, but there was no effort to linger in conversation. She never sat with Evelyn in the kitchen to chat while meals were prepared, never asked about Evelyn's health or garden. Evelyn, on her part, never insulted or confronted Clara, but her eyes were sharp, observant, as if she was silently keeping notes. One Sunday afternoon, after church, Daniel invited Clara to lunch at his mother's house. They ate jollof rice and fried plantain together at the dining table. Evelyn spoke mostly with Daniel, asking about his work and his health, occasionally turning to Clara with a polite question. Clara, do you cook? Evelyn asked at one point. Clara laughed lightly. Ah, Mama, not really. With my kind of work, I hardly have time. I just order food most times or eat out. Evelyn smiled faintly. I see. The silence that followed felt heavier than the words. Daniel tried to smooth things over with a joke, but he noticed how Evelyn's eyes dimmed. Later that evening, when Clara stepped outside to take another call, Evelyn looked at her son. Daniel, she said gently, don't let love blind you. A home is more than laughter and fine clothes. It is patience, sacrifice, and endurance. Does Clara know how to endure? Daniel sighed. Mama, times have changed. Women don't have to stay in kitchens anymore. She's working hard. She's independent. Isn't that good? Evelyn nodded, her expression unreadable. It is good. But marriage is not only about independence. It is also about dependence, leaning on each other when storms come. A woman who cannot bend may break. Daniel felt a flicker of irritation. Mama, I've heard you. Please, give her time. You will come to love her. Evelyn did not argue. She only patted his hand. I hope you are right, my son. Time will tell. Over the years that followed, Evelyn never forced her opinion again. She remained cordial whenever Clara was around, never openly criticizing. But the bond Daniel once imagined between his mother and his wife never formed. There were no long chats over tea, no warm laughter shared in the kitchen, no late-night heart-to-hearts. Just polite greetings, polite smiles, and polite silences. Daniel told himself it was normal. Not every mother-in-law becomes best friends with a daughter-in-law. As long as they were not enemies, it was fine. He convinced himself of this, ignoring the unease that sometimes crept into his heart whenever he caught Evelyn watching Clara with those same sharp, measuring eyes. In his heart, Daniel believed love was enough. What he didn't know was that Evelyn's silence wasn't indifference. It was watchfulness. A mother's quiet guard, waiting for the day her son might need a protection he didn't yet realize he would require. Daniel had always been a man with dreams bigger than the four walls of his office. For 6 years, he worked at a commercial bank in Lagos. The salary was good, the position stable, and people respected him. But inside, he felt trapped, like a bird locked in a golden cage. Every morning as he tied his tie and slipped into his polished shoes, he told himself, I was made for more than this. One evening, after another long day of balancing accounts and stamping papers, Daniel sat with Clara in their small living room. The TV hummed in the background, but his thoughts were restless. Clara, he began, hesitating a little, have you ever felt like you're living someone else's dream? Clara looked up from her phone. What do you mean? I mean this bank job. It pays the bills, but it's not me. I want to build something of my own. Something lasting. Clara raised an eyebrow. Like what? Daniel leaned forward, his eyes glowing. A logistics company. Think about it. Nigeria is growing. Businesses need better ways to move goods. With my knowledge and connections, I can make it work. I've been saving. I've been studying the market. I think it's time." Clara put down her phone, staring at him. "Daniel, you want to leave a steady bank job to start chasing trucks up and down." He chuckled nervously. "Not chasing trucks. Managing operations, coordinating deliveries, creating solutions. I believe it can grow." She folded her arms. "And what if it doesn't grow? What if it collapses and we're left with nothing? You know how this country is. Corruption, bad roads, unreliable workers. Do you think passion pays bills?" Daniel's smile faded, but he held his ground. "I've done my homework. It's risky, yes, but I can't stay stuck forever. I want more for us." Clara sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Daniel, I love your ambition, but sometimes ambition kills people. If you fail, what happens to us? Do you expect me to start carrying all the load?" Her words cut him deeper than she realized, but Daniel forced a smile. "Clara, trust me. This isn't just a fantasy. I'll make it work." A few months later, he resigned from the bank. With his savings and a small loan, Daniel launched Swift Path Logistics. At first, everything looked promising. He hired a small team of drivers, bought 2 delivery vans, and started courting clients. Within months, he signed 2 big contracts with major companies. At night, he would come home beaming. "Clara, you see? It's working. The risk was worth it." Clara would nod, half smiling. Let's hope it lasts." But then disaster struck. One of his employees mishandled a major delivery, late shipments, damaged goods, and angry clients. Not one, but both of his biggest clients pulled out in the same week. It was like the ground had been ripped from under Daniel's feet. Those 2 contracts had been the lifeline of the company. Without them, Swift Path began to bleed money. Daniel tried to stay calm. He worked day and night, cold calling businesses, pitching new contracts, revising proposals. He returned home exhausted, his shirt soaked with sweat, his mind heavy with worry. Meanwhile, bills piled up. Rent, utilities, groceries. Nothing waited. At first, Clara showed patience. She helped here and there with her own salary, but her attitude grew colder each day. One evening, after Daniel came home late, face drawn with fatigue, Clara confronted him. "This is becoming unbearable, Daniel. We're sinking. You left a good job for this nonsense. And now look at us." Daniel dropped his bag, his voice hoarse. "Clara, I'm trying. Do you think I don't see the bills? Do you think I don't feel the pressure? Just give me time." "Time?" Clara's laugh was bitter. "We don't eat time, Daniel. Time won't pay PHCN. Time won't fill the fridge." He clenched his fists, swallowing his anger. "I thought you were with me in this. Just for a little while, until I rebuild." Clara shook her head. "You dragged us into your gamble, and now you want me to suffer for it. I didn't sign up for this." The cracks in their marriage widened. Dinners turned into silent meals. Nights in the same bed felt like sleeping beside a stranger. Clara's voice, once sweet, was now sharp, filled with blame. Daniel prayed every night for a miracle. But miracles were scarce. The business limped on, barely alive, and his spirit grew heavier by the day. One evening, after another fruitless day of chasing clients, Daniel drove to Ibadan. The road was dark, the hum of his car the only sound, but his mind was louder than a drum. Pride had kept him from asking his mother for help, but desperation broke that pride into pieces. When he arrived, Evelyn was in her living room, reading her Bible by the dim light of a lamp. She looked up and smiled warmly. "Daniel, my son, you didn't call, but I knew you'd come tonight." Daniel's heart tightened. How did mothers always know? He sat down heavily, unable to speak at first. His eyes stung, but he fought the tears. "Talk to me," Evelyn said softly. "Mama," Daniel began, his voice breaking. "I tried. I really tried. But the business, it's collapsing. I lost my biggest clients. The money is almost gone. Every day, I wake up thinking it will get better, but it doesn't. I can't carry it anymore. I've failed." The tears came then, hot and uncontrollable. Evelyn reached across, holding his hand firmly. You have not failed. You stumbled. There is a difference. But, Mama, Clara is tired. We're fighting every day. I feel like I'm losing everything. My business, my marriage, my peace. Evelyn was silent for a long moment, studying his weary face. Then she stood, walked to a drawer, and pulled out a thick envelope. She placed it gently on the table. Take this. Daniel frowned. What is it? Money, she said simply. Enough to help you stand again. He shook his head. Mama, I can't. You've already done so much for me. Daniel. Her tone was firm now. You are my only child. Everything I have, I keep for you. Take it, and rise again. This storm will pass, but you must not drown before the calm comes. Daniel hesitated, then slowly picked up the envelope. His hands trembled. Mama, I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, she said, her eyes softening. Just promise me one thing, that you will not give up no matter how dark the night becomes. And Daniel, she paused, her voice lowering. Open your eyes. Life will test not only your dreams but also your relationships. Some people shine in the sun but vanish in the rain. Watch carefully who remains when storms come. Daniel swallowed hard. He knew she was speaking about Clara, though she didn't mention her name. I hear you, Mama, he whispered. With Evelyn's help, Daniel was able to restructure his company. He hired consultants temporarily, polished his pitch, and within months, he secured smaller but steady contracts. The business began to breathe again. But while Swift Pa slowly recovered, his marriage continued to rot. The fights didn't stop. The warmth didn't return. Clara still looked at him with cold, accusing eyes. One night, after a long silence at dinner, Daniel looked at her and asked softly, Clara, do you even want this marriage anymore? She didn't look up. Do you? Daniel had no answer. And so, though his company crawled back from the edge of death, his marriage continued slipping toward it. Little did Daniel know that his mother's warning, watch carefully who remains when storms come, was about to prove truer than he could ever imagine. The company was crawling back to its feet, but Daniel's heart wasn't. Even though contracts began trickling in and staff morale lifted, there was no joy waiting for him at home. Clara had grown distant. She no longer asked how his day went, no longer laughed at his jokes, no longer reached for him at night. One Friday evening, after a long day in traffic, Daniel slumped into bed. His phone buzzed, and when he saw the name flash on the screen, his heart stopped. Mama. It wasn't unusual for Evelyn to call, but there was something about the tone in her voice when she spoke that night. It was softer than usual, but heavy, like a secret wrapped in stone. Daniel, my son, can you come tomorrow? I need to see you. He sat up. Is everything all right, Mama? There was a pause. Just come. We'll talk when you arrive. That pause, that small, heavy pause, kept Daniel awake most of the night. The next day, Daniel drove to a Baden. When he stepped into the familiar living room, Evelyn was sitting by the window, her body thinner than he remembered. Mama, what's going on? He asked, worry etched on his face. Evelyn sighed deeply, folded her hands on her lap, and looked at her son as though memorizing his face. Daniel, I've been carrying something for a while now, but it is time, you know. Daniel's chest tightened. What is it? She took a breath, steady but trembling at the edges. The doctors say I have ovarian cancer. I've been fighting it quietly for almost a year. The treatments, they didn't work as we hoped. They told me to stop counting years and start thinking in months. Daniel froze, his ears ringing. Cancer. His voice cracked. Mama, no, this can't be true. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Evelyn reached for his hand, her eyes calm but filled with sadness. Because you were already fighting battles of your own. I didn't want to add mine to your load. Tears blurred Daniel's vision. But, Mama, I could have been there. I could have. You are here now, she interrupted gently. That is enough. We don't choose how long we stay in this world, but we choose how we leave it, with peace or with fear. I want peace. Daniel bowed his head into his hands, sobbing quietly. Evelyn stroked his back, the way she had when he was a little boy. "Don't cry too much for me," she whispered. "When the time comes, remember I lived a full life. My only regret is leaving you too soon. But I trust you will be fine." The weeks that followed were some of the darkest Daniel had ever known. By day, he ran his company on autopilot. By night, he sat by his mother's hospital bed, holding her hand, listening to the steady beeps of machines. Sometimes they spoke, other times they sat in silence, the kind of silence where hearts spoke louder than mouths. One night, as rain tapped against the hospital window, Evelyn said softly, "Daniel, promise me something." "Anything, Mama. Promise me you will not let grief make you weak. Life will hit you, yes, but stand. Even when I am gone, stand. And promise me one more thing." She paused, her eyes locking on his. "Protect yourself from those who love you only when the sun shines. You know what I mean." Daniel swallowed hard. He knew exactly what she meant. Clara, meanwhile, drifted further away. At first, when Daniel told her about Evelyn's illness, she put on a mask of sympathy. She said the right words. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me know if you need anything." But the actions didn't follow. She visited the hospital only a handful of times. When Daniel asked why, she shrugged. "Hospitals make me uncomfortable. The smell, the machines, it's too depressing." "But Mama asks about you," Daniel said quietly. Clara sighed. "Daniel, it's not like I don't care. I'm just busy with work. You know how demanding my job is." Daniel stopped arguing. Deep inside, he understood what his mother meant. Storms reveal who truly stands with you. 2 months passed. 2 long, heavy months. Evelyn grew weaker by the day, her once strong voice now faint, her steps shorter, her appetite fading. And then, one quiet morning, she slipped away. Daniel was there, holding her hand. He felt the warmth leave slowly, like a candle burning down to nothing. For a long time, he just sat there, staring, unable to process it. His rock, his anchor, his only parent left, gone. Evelyn had been clear about what she wanted when the time came. No fanfare, no endless ceremonies, no wailing crowds. "I don't want people making speeches over me, Daniel," she had told him once. "I want to go quietly, bury me quickly, and live on." So that was what he did. The very next day, Evelyn was laid to rest in the small family plot beside Daniel's father. The funeral was simple, a few neighbors, a pastor, and Daniel standing by the grave, staring at the mound of fresh earth. The pastor's words blurred in his ears. All he could hear was the silence in his own heart. How do you keep living when the person who taught you how to live is no longer there? As the last handful of soil hit the coffin, Daniel whispered under his breath, "Rest well, Mama. I'll try to stand like you asked." The days that followed were a blur. He moved through life mechanically, answering phone calls, signing documents, eating meals without tasting them. Clara offered little comfort. She tried, in her own way, but it was shallow. One evening, as Daniel sat quietly in the living room, staring at his mother's old photo, Clara came in. "Daniel," she said carefully, "I know you're grieving, but life must go on. You can't keep drowning in this sadness." He looked at her, eyes tired. "Clara, I buried my mother yesterday. Do you expect me to smile already?" "I'm just saying," she replied, folding her arms. "You can't let this pull you down. You still have me." Her words, instead of comforting, only deepened the ache. "Do I really have you?" He thought but didn't say. A week later, Daniel received a call from his mother's lawyer. "Mr. Daniel, your mother left instructions. Could you come to my office tomorrow?" Daniel assumed it was about settling bills or closing accounts. He walked into the lawyer's office expecting routine paperwork. Instead, the lawyer placed a thick file in front of him. Your mother was a very thoughtful woman. She structured her estate carefully before her passing. Daniel blinked, confused. Estate? What estate? The lawyer smiled faintly. Your mother left you a fortune. She placed everything in a trust, property, savings, investments. All of it, for you. Daniel sat back, stunned. He had known his mother was careful with money, but he had never imagined she had quietly built such wealth. But then the lawyer continued, "There are conditions. You cannot access the full inheritance until after a 3-year stability period. During those 3 years, your life must remain steady, especially no divorce. And if you ever divorce during that period, your spouse is completely cut out. No claim, no negotiation, nothing." Daniel stared at him, speechless. "Your mother was very deliberate," the lawyer added. "She wanted to ensure you were protected. The trust is ironclad. No court can override it." That night, Daniel sat alone in his car after leaving the lawyer's office. The city lights blurred around him as his mind replayed his mother's voice. "Protect yourself from those who love you only when the sun shines." Now he understood. Evelyn had seen something in Clara that he had refused to admit. And even from the grave, she was still protecting him. The night after leaving the lawyer's office, Daniel could hardly sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Evelyn's words echoing in his mind. "Protect yourself from those who love you only when the sun shines." Clara slept beside him, her back turned, her breathing steady. Daniel wondered if she truly cared, or if she had been waiting all along for a moment like this, when money would change everything. The trust papers lay on his desk in the study, thick documents filled with clauses, signatures, and stamps of authority. Daniel had read them twice, but the words still felt unreal. His mother had left him everything. It was all locked in a trust. He could not touch the full inheritance for 3 years, and if he divorced within that period, or was even in the process of divorcing, his wife would be completely cut out. Not a single coin would reach Clara. Daniel rubbed his temples. "Mama, you saw what I refused to see," he whispered into the night. The next evening, Daniel decided to tell Clara, but only part of the truth. "Clara," he said as they sat at the dinner table, "I met with Mama's lawyer. She left me an inheritance." Clara's head snapped up from her food, her eyes brightening for a split second before she masked it with a polite nod. "Oh, that's good. Your mother was very organized." Daniel studied her carefully. No questions about the details, no curiosity about the structure, just a flat statement. It was as though she was processing the information silently, calculating. He didn't mention the trust. He didn't mention the 3-year clause. Something inside him told him to keep that to himself. Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel noticed subtle changes in Clara. She became unusually cheerful, humming while she dressed for work, smiling more often. She even suggested they go out for dinner one night, something she hadn't done in months. At the restaurant, she leaned across the table, her eyes shining. "Daniel, I think things will be better for us now. We can move past all the struggles." Daniel forced a smile. "Yes, maybe." But deep down, a cold unease gripped him. Clara wasn't celebrating their love or resilience. She was celebrating what she believed was now within her reach. And then it happened. 2 weeks after he told her about the inheritance, Daniel was at the office when a man walked in. "Mr. Daniel," the man asked, holding an envelope. "Yes." "You've been served." Daniel opened the envelope, his hands trembling. Inside was a petition for dissolution of marriage. Clara had filed for divorce. He sat in his chair, staring blankly at the papers. His heart hammered against his chest, not from heartbreak, but from shock. There had been no fight, no late-night argument, no warning, just cold, calculated betrayal. That evening, Daniel confronted Clara. "Why, Clara, why are you divorcing me without even talking to me first?" She didn't even flinch. She looked him in the eye, her face unreadable. "We've grown apart. Let's be adults about it." Then she turned and walked away. Daniel stood frozen, staring at her retreating back. He realized, in that moment, that he had been married to a stranger all along. The divorce process began, dragging Daniel into a storm of paperwork, mediation sessions, and endless tension. Clara came in swinging. Her lawyer was aggressive, demanding 50% of all present and future marital assets. Daniel's lawyer raised an eyebrow at that. "Future assets? That's unusual." Clara's lawyer smirked. "Our position is clear. The inheritance falls under marital property. She is entitled to half." Daniel sat quietly, watching Clara's face. She didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on the table, her lips curved in a faint smile. "So that's it," Daniel thought. You didn't want out of the marriage. You wanted into my mother's wealth. For weeks, the negotiations went in circles. Clara refused to budge. She wanted half of everything, convinced she had the law on her side. Daniel's lawyer prepared quietly, gathering documents, cross-checking every clause in the trust. When the day finally came to present the papers, Daniel sat in the mediation room with his chest tight, waiting. The lawyer placed a trust file on the table, opened it, and began to explain. This inheritance, he said firmly, was placed in a trust by Daniel's late mother. It is not marital property. The trust is structured with strict conditions. It has never been deposited in any joint account. And most importantly, he tapped the page for emphasis. If Daniel is divorced, or even in the process of divorce during the 3-year stability period, his spouse is cut out completely. Not a single kobo. The room went silent. Clara's eyes widened. She leaned forward, snatching the papers from the table, flipping through them quickly, her face draining of color. Her lawyer frowned, reading over her shoulder. After a long pause, he muttered, "We may need to reconsider our position." Daniel watched as Clara's confidence melted. Her lips trembled. Her hands shook as she pushed the papers away. Her plan had backfired. That evening, back at home, Clara lashed out. "You're evil, Daniel. You and your mother planned this together to cheat me." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Planned? Clara, when my mother set up that trust, I thought she went too far. But now I see she knew exactly who you are. She saw what I refused to see. She protected me, even from my own wife." Clara's face twisted in anger. "You think you're smart? You think you won?" Daniel's voice dropped, calm but cold. "I didn't win. Clara, you lost, to your own greed." Months later, the divorce was finalized. Clara walked away with only what little was left of their marital assets, most of it consumed by her legal fees. The inheritance she had schemed for slipped completely out of her reach, locked away by a mother's foresight. Daniel walked away with his freedom, but he also walked away with scars of betrayal, of loss, of love that had never been real. And as he sat alone in his apartment one evening, he whispered into the silence, "Mama, even in death, you stood by me." The divorce hearings dragged on for months, each session draining Daniel's energy. But unlike Clara, who came dressed in fine clothes and painted smiles, Daniel carried himself with a quiet dignity. Clara had entered the courtroom like a woman certain of victory. She believed half of the inheritance was already hers. She had told friends, even hinted to her colleagues, that she was walking away a wealthy woman. But when the trust was revealed in detail, her world collapsed. Daniel could never forget the look on her face that day. Her lawyer's voice faltered as he read through the clauses. "Wait! This says..." He looked up, stunned. "This trust excludes any spouse if divorce proceedings begin during the 3-year stability period." Clara's eyes darted from the lawyer to Daniel, then back to the papers. "That's impossible," she whispered. "It can't be." "It is," Daniel's lawyer replied calmly. "This trust is airtight. You will get nothing from it." Clara's hands trembled. She turned to Daniel, her voice shaking between anger and desperation. "Daniel, you hid this from me. You tricked me." Daniel's lips curled into a bitter smile. "I didn't hide anything. Clara, my mother knew who you were long before I admitted it. She protected me, and you prove her right." For the first time since the process began, Clara broke. Tears filled her eyes, but they weren't tears of love lost. They were tears of greed denied. She had gambled on a fortune and lost everything. In the weeks that followed, Clara's frustration grew into fury. She accused Daniel of conspiring with his mother, of deliberately setting a trap. "You and your mother are wicked," she spat one night after mediation. "You plotted all this to make me look like a fool." Daniel's voice was calm but sharp. "No, Clara, you made yourself look like a fool. You thought marriage was a lottery ticket. You thought my grief was your jackpot. But you played too soon, and you played the wrong game." She glared at him, her face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this, Daniel. One day, you'll regret it." But deep inside, Daniel knew he wouldn't. He had already lost too much. His mother, his peace, his illusions about love. He had nothing left to lose. When the final settlement came, Clara received only a fraction of what she expected. Their shared assets were meager, most eaten up by legal fees and debts. Instead of walking away rich, she walked away bitter, with almost nothing to show for years of marriage. Friends who once envied her went silent. Family members who thought she had struck gold now whispered behind her back. Her plan had not just failed, it had humiliated her. And Daniel, though scarred, walked away with his head high, carrying his mother's foresight like a shield around his heart. Months passed after the divorce. Daniel threw himself into rebuilding his life. His business, Swift Path Logistics, slowly grew steadier. Each small success reminded him of Evelyn's words, "Do not give up, no matter how dark the night becomes." But some nights, loneliness still pressed hard against him. He would sit in his apartment, staring at his mother's framed photo, whispering, "Mama, I wish you were here to see me standing." It was on one of those lonely evenings that his phone buzzed with a message. The sender's name made his stomach clench. Clara. The message was long, written late at night when pride is weakest. "Daniel, I don't know who else to turn to. Things are bad. The debts are crushing me. I thought I could manage, but everything is falling apart. I can't breathe. Please, please help me. I know I hurt you, but I didn't mean for it to end like this. You're the only one who can save me." Daniel read it 3 times, his heart heavy. For a moment, the old instinct tugged at him, the instinct to protect her, to step in, to rescue. He remembered the woman he had once loved, the nights they laughed, the dreams they shared. But then he remembered the betrayal, the cold divorce papers, the greedy smile in mediation, the way she had tried to turn his mother's death into her own profit. He sat quietly for a long while, then typed his reply. "Clara, I'm sorry you're going through this, but I cannot save you. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. You showed me who you were, and I believe you. I wish you well, but I cannot go back." He hit send. That was the last time Daniel ever heard from Clara. She faded from his life like smoke from a dying fire. He didn't ask what became of her, didn't check if she recovered or sank deeper into debt. She had chosen her path, and he had chosen his. Looking back, Daniel realized that he had lost 2 things in the same season, his mother and his marriage. Both losses had cut him deeply, leaving scars that would never fully fade. But he had also gained something. Clarity. His mother's final act of love had opened his eyes. She had shielded him from a woman who had never truly been his partner, and in doing so, she had given him a second chance at life. One evening, standing by Evelyn's grave, Daniel placed fresh flowers and whispered, "Mama, thank you. You saw what I couldn't see. You loved me enough to protect me even after you were gone. I'll keep standing, just like you asked." The wind rustled the leaves gently, as if in reply, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel felt at peace. Life is a way of revealing the truth, sometimes in the most painful way. If this story moved you, don't just click away. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join me here for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. And if you think you've heard it all, trust me, the next story will shock you even more.